Wow.
All right, chapter 12. This is gonna be your scene size up. We're gonna talk about violence towards EMS personnel. Necessary standard precautions. Scene safety, nature of the problem, number of patients. All right, this is like the first section of your trauma assessment and medical assessment. All right, dispatcher, Sherry speaks to the radio, ambulance 5, rescue 7, respond to the Water Street Saloon, 221 West Water Street for an injured person. Law enforcement is en route. EMTs Chantal and Dale glance at each other and head towards the ambulance. What are some of the specific concerns about this call that the crew should keep in mind?
Oh, bar.
They're going to a bar. What happens at a bar?
Drunk.
Yep. All right, what clues should the crew be alert to in order to maintain their own safety?
Law enforcement's already on their way.
Okay. Okay. What actions are necessary in order for the crew to remain out of harm's way? Let the police clear the scene. Okay. Alright, the pre-hospital setting is an uncontrolled environment. Failing to recognize hazards of a scene has a high cost, not only to you, your partner, but your patient as well, and the next crew that has to come in and rescue you. Okay? You must pay close attention to the scene size up on every call. Always remember that the scene size up is a dynamic and ongoing process that continues throughout the call. Scene size up does not end after you make contact with the patient. Alright, you have 3 goals during the scene size up. Identify possible hazards. Alright, the safety of crew members and yourself, the patient, and the bystanders. Identify what led to your being called to the scene. Is it a trauma or a medical problem? This identification will determine the steps you need to follow to assess the patient and provide emergency care. Determine whether any factors such as the number of patients or unusual characteristics of the scene might require assistance from additional personnel. Alright, so if somebody runs into a light pole and there's power lines down, are you going to be able to handle that? No, you're not. Alright, if somebody that runs into the power pole and the power lines are down and the car is on fire, are you going to be able to handle that? You are not. Alright, say that they ran into the light pole, the energy lines are down, the power lines are down, the car is on fire, and your bystanders are trying to get in the car to the patient. Are you going to be able to handle that? More than likely not, okay?
I have more patience than that.
Alright, with these goals in mind, proceeding with the scene size up by evaluating the following components in a stepwise manner. You're going to take your body substance isolation, BSIs, my scene safe. Alright? You need gloves, eye protection, surgical masks these days, N95 mask, gown. Some places may require helmets and turnout gear. Evaluate the scene for safety hazards, environmental, hazardous material, violence from roadway traffic, power lines. If the scene is not safe, do not enter until it is made safe, either by the fire department, the police department, the power company, the gas company, whoever, alright? And retreat if necessary if the scene becomes unsafe. Determine the mechanism of injury or illness. Is the patient injured? Is it a trauma patient? Alright, is it a medical patient? Are they ill? Or, guess what? It could be both, a medical and trauma. Determine the mechanism of injury, or MOI. Okay, what exactly happened with the trauma patient? Okay, did they run their car into something? Did they fall off a roof? Did they fall out of a tree stand? Did they get run over by a car? And did they get shot? Did they get stabbed? Did somebody cut their arm off? Like, what happened? You need to determine the nature of illness for medical patients. Alright? Are they having chest pain, shortness of breath, their tooth hurts? Alright? Determine the number of patients at the scene. If you are one truck, it's you and your paramedic partner, and you have 5 patients, do you think you're going to be able to haul all 5 of those patients
No.
in your truck?
Not at all.
I have hauled, I've hauled six people in the truck from a car wreck. I could have kicked the car harder than what they, yeah. But however, if you have critical patients, you cannot haul that many. Alright, you also need to determine the need for additional resources. Do you need another unit from your service? Do you need law enforcement, fire department, hazmat team, those sort of things? In a recent pre-hospital study published by Pre-Hospital Emergency Care, the authors found that 69% of EMS personnel studied had experienced some form of violence over the preceding 12 months while providing EMS care. Verbal abuse was most common compared to physical violence. Verbal was 67, physical violence was 43. The types of physical violence include punching, slapping, or scratching, spitting, biting, being struck with an object, stabbing or attempted stabbing, and shooting or attempted shooting. I can tell you that in 20 years of EMS, I've had knives pulled on me, I've been punched, I've been spit at, I've had guns pulled on me, they shot through the back of my truck one night when I worked in Jackson.
Jesus. Do you still like tend to them? Like I'm like, sorry, you're on your own, motherfucker.
Yeah, no, that's not how that works.
So why
You tried to
do
stab
they pull
me.
knives and shoot at you?
Dang it.
I really couldn't tell you. You get the fuck up out of there.
Call the cops.
Where was that even at?
Jackson.
What part of Jackson people shooting at the back of your ambulance?
Jackson, Mississippi?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that makes much more sense.
Is there a Jackson, Louisiana that I don't
No,
know
I
about?
don't know. I thought shit Jackson.
Stop being made that
No.
bully.
Who shoots in an ambulance?
Lots of people. I've had them bust out the side glass, I've had them bust out the back glass, I've pulled rice knuckles out of dead people's hands, I mean, you'd be surprised.
You ever had to go to Parkview?
Huh?
You ever had to go to Parkview?
No.
Shout out to what?
Go to Parkview.
I've taken patients there, but I've never had to
I said on that
be a patient.
ambulance shot on TV, what's it called? Night Watch?
Mhm.
Somebody like got in the front driver's seat and took off.
Yeah, they'll steal your
the
truck.
bag.
Yeah.
You say it's somewhere, I think it's like either Georgia or Alabama or something, they're starting to train paramedics and EMTs to like carry guns and stuff.
Yeah, they're actually carrying in Maryland right now.
You carry a gun if you
Fuck yes.
I don't think any experienced paramedic would say no.
Gloves must be considered standard protective equipment. Wear examination gloves for every patient contact you suspect. You might come in contact with blood, other body fluids, mucous membranes, or break in the skin, or other potential exposure to transmittable diseases.
I had a question, I think in class, so he gave us the little outfits you wear, the hat, you know.
Uh-huh.
So, and I was like, so these are what, like, resistant to liquids, so like if blood gets splattered, it's not gonna go through, and he was like, they're not water resistant, they're not waterproof, they're water resistant, so it can still go through those outfits.
Yeah.
It just
There's
takes
nothing
longer.
that is 100% protection. Nothing. Some personal protective, huh?
And so he gave us like these full hazmat suits, like that's what it looked like.
Yeah. Some personal protective equipment that is needed in the hazardous zone may not be necessary outside of that area. For example, a firefighter will wear full protective equipment to enter a burning structure to secure a patient. The firefighter, still wearing full protective equipment, may deliver that patient to you in a staging area well away from any danger from the structure fire. Because you are working in a safe and protected area, it is not the immediate hazard zone. It is not necessary to wear the full equipment that the firefighter is wearing. Alright, prior to entering a crashed vehicle to assess and manage a patient, you must consider what level of personal protection is needed to protect yourself against the same personal injury. Firefighters are responsible for extrication, and they wear those turnout suits because they will become exposed to jagged metal and glass. Alright? If you get in that car with that patient, you're going to be exposed to jagged metal and glass. Alright? Usually when they get in, they wear the turnout gear, helmet, heavy gloves, eye protection. Alright? Your PPE should be at the same level of other rescuers on scene. Alright? A A lot of times, they'll have an extra turnout jacket in there, you can cover your patient with it, or you can put it on and cover your patient. Alright, or you can use a blanket to cover your patient, just so something keeps the metal and glass from getting to them. If they fail to control the scene will control you. Someone must be in charge. That someone might become the patient, family member, or a crowd of bystanders if you fail to take charge. Sleeplessness, preoccupation with other problems, apathy, and overconfidence can lead an EMT to shortcut and ignore the principles of scene safety. Don't let this happen to you. The consequences can be costly for yourself, your partner, and your patients. Receipt of call notification from the dispatcher can help you anticipate what standard precautions or other personal protective equipment you will need at the scene. Be aware that callers at times may deliberately give inaccurate information. For example, a caller may report chest pains when the problem is a stabbing or gunshot wound. If the caller has reported the facts, it is likely that law enforcement personnel would also have been dispatched, something the caller would wish to avoid. Use the dispatch information to prepare for the scene, but remain silent to the possibility of different circumstances upon your arrival.
So question. Say that does happen to you and somebody's got stabbed in the chest by whoever.
Uh-huh.
What would you do? Would you call law enforcement and leave, or would you have to just stay there and?
You call law enforcement, you get that patient in the back of the truck, and you get the hell out of there. Alright, hazards can include angry or hostile patients or bystanders, hazardous material, infectious disease, crime scenes, down power lines. At any time during the scene size of it may be necessary to recognize your own limitations and call for additional resources or specially trained personnel for situations or rescues that are beyond your training. Electrical wires pose a threat, please call a power company. An injured or helpless EMT can't provide emergency care to a patient. In addition, attention and resources may be diverted from the patient to you, risking further compromise to your patient. You must study the scene carefully and determine whether it's safe to approach the patient. This determination must be made on all responses. Managing patients at a crash scene or roadways and highways places you at extreme risk of being struck by moving traffic. Take extra precautions at crime scenes, suspected crime scenes, and scenes involving volatile crowd situations. Wait for the arrival of police. Alright, do not roll up, do not park where they can see you, do not roll up to the driveway with your lights flashing and just sit there. That's going to piss people off, okay? If you happen to get to a scene and it turns threatening, retreat and wait for the police. These scenes often include domestic violence calls. Be sure to bring your portable radio with you when you leave the ambulance so you can contact dispatch or medical direction from the scene for needed resources or advice. Call for help from the appropriate agencies, police, fire, rescue, utility company, water, hazmat, or other. If a scene is outside your area of training or expertise, remove yourself if a scene becomes hazardous. At a crash scene, the EMT's attention is drawn naturally and immediately to the patient. This will put you at considerable risk if the crash scene isn't properly controlled and safety precautions have not been taken to protect emergency personnel, not only from the hazards that exist, but because of the crash itself, but also from vehicle traffic around the crash scene. Alright, and you need to know if power lines are involved. Alright, some settings. Alright, this is a NBC where they struck a utility pole. Alright, that pole looks like it's fixing to fall, don't it? Yep, is that scene safe? No, it is not. Alright, these people have hazardous materials. Is that scene safe for you? No, it is not. They're putting up crime scene tape. They're probably going to be doing this after you leave. But however, We have been over crime scenes already, have we not? Don't ever cut through. Holes in clothing, preserve everything that you can preserve, take one way in, one way out. If you touch something or move something, let the police department know. Motor vehicle crash at an overpass. Yeah, I'm not going down there. That's the fire department, all day long. Well, it looks like there's something down there.
That's probably the trailer, that was on the trailer.
Well, that man down there is standing on something.
I think he's under the bridge.
Well, there's got to be something on the bridge.
I think it's
Well, it
under
is
the
like it's
creek.
going over water, so it might just
Like
be
a
just
drain
concrete
pipe or
wall.
something.
Alright. Does jagged metal or broken glass pose a threat? Can such material be avoided, covered, or otherwise isolated to minimize said threat? Are there undeployed airbags? Is fuel leaking? If so, is an ignition source nearby? Is there a fire? Has the fire department been called? Are hazardous materials involved? Another serious threat to emergency medical and other rescue personnel is moving traffic. There may be well-documented incidents of EMTs being killed or severely injured by vehicles crashing into emergency personnel and emergency vehicles at a crash scene on a highway or road. This happened probably about 6 years ago in Jackson. There was a paramedic. She was out working on a victim of a wreck. A drunk driver came by, plowed her over. She lived about 6 years before she died. It was not good. Alright, place flares or cones. Strategically place your vehicles so that they protect you. Do as much work as possible out of the flow of traffic. Don't jump highway dividers to provide emergency care while leaving yourself exposed to moving traffic. Always go up, turn your vehicle around. Your vehicle is your biggest safety measure, okay? Turn the wheels of parked emergency vehicles so that they are pointed away from the scene, alright? And avoid stopping and standing between vehicles. Why do we not stop and stand between vehicles?
It's hit.
In case it gets hit, okay? And wear your safety vest. Alright, other rescue scenes require specialized training. These are chemical, biological, nuclear weapons. Heights, my ass is not getting anywhere near a height. I'm not going down, no ravine. I'm not going up, no mountain. Alright, underground areas, not doing that either. Ice rescue, that's what the fire department's for. Moving water rescue, that is also what the fire department's for. Alright, it's your duty to ensure that adequate numbers of appropriately trained personnel and equipped personnel are summoned if necessary to handle special rescuers, alright, such as collapses and cave-ins, storage tanks and vats, silos and bins, farm equipment. Some situations you might frequently encounter, okay? Unstable surfaces and slopes. Victim of injury and illness may be encountered on unstable surfaces. Such surfaces create additional difficulties and hazards and can greatly complicate treatment and transport. Assess the patient in such circumstances may be required. You may have to use ropes to get them up where they need to be. If you're not trained in the proper use of ropes, summon a crew or wait for trained rescue crew, okay? And you're not gonna have ropes on ambulances anyway. Drownings are a common reason for the dispatch of an EMT team, but water can also be a factor in other types of calls. Always proceed with caution in situations where water is a factor. If you're faced with a situation beyond your capability to handle, summon and wait for backup from those with proper training and equipment. Swimming pools present a major challenge. The patient will be visible, but if you are untrained in water rescue, retrieving the patient will be difficult and should never be attempted alone. Rescue in open water is a specialized technique that requires training and equipment. You must ensure that adequate resources are summoned. People have been reported missing or drowned. Moving water presents problems of open water and further complicates by the force of the current. Patients and rescuers alike can be easily swept away. Alright, I work in Lake Providence. Well, guess what? We got a big old lake there. And we frequently have people that apparently cannot drive in a straight line. They run straight into the lake. And my co-workers laugh at me quite frequently because I tell them I'm not going in that lake to get anybody. I'll go in a swimming pool all day long. A lake, I can't see the bottom of that. I don't know what's down there. I don't know what's in there. I'm sure there's some big old alligators and other things in there. I'm not going in there. I hate it. I really do. I'm gonna be standing on the side. Hey, can you climb up here? Come on.
Actually, they're drowning.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. And see, the thing about it is the outside is not that deep. It's not the depth of the water. It's what's in the water. There's snakes and alligators and other things.
I
So
think it killed me in the process of helping you.
if they can climb up, that is better for them and me.
See, I'd be the one to just dive in there
And there you'd be.
Patient number 2.
first. I mean, if Katie Lake can't kill me, ain't nothing.
Did you not just hear she said it's very shallow?
The EMT must be alert to the possible presence of toxic substances or areas of low oxygen during the scene size up. Some scenes, such as a crash involving a tanker truck, will prevent obvious hazards. Combination of other highly toxic substances pose a great risk are chemical suicides. People who intend to or commit suicide using this method often mix dangerous chemicals or release a gas such as propane in
That was me.
an enclosed, why am I not surprised, space to asphyxiate themselves.
Have you ever been called anything like that?
What?
Have you ever been called anybody with a chemical suicide?
Yes.
I've just never heard, other than like carbon
Arkansas
monoxide,
seems
that's the only
awful.
thing I've ever heard.
Look for chemicals such as ephedrine, pseudoephedrine, iodine,
Hydrochloric.
hydrochloric acid, ether, and anhydrous ammonia in clandestine drug operations. A lot of times these places will be booby traps. Okay, you open the door, they will have a string attached to a shotgun. When you open the door, it will shoot you. Okay?
Drug dens.
Yes.
Been called that.
Yes. There will be times when you are sent to scenes at which no crime has been reported, but there you suspect a crime might be involved. A report of an injury at a bar late at night or a call to an area with high crime rate might be suspect. Be alert to the possibility of dangers on this call.
Okay, you know how everything that happened in the parking and stuff? So if the ambulance get called there, would they send a police officers?
They should.
I've heard the police don't go there.
Oh
Yes.
my God, it's like one way in and one way out. So like the police went in one day and the parking people, they started shooting at the police officer, so he just left.
Well, duh.
I would
And
too.
then-
If I'm getting
If
shot.
it's not there, the ambulance is not gonna show up. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you that right now, unless they're Billy Badass. I seriously doubt they're Billy Badass because,
Like they was on Facebook Live, like they was like, yeah, we turned the police on, making the police leave. I'm like, it's not so.
If you don't want us to hear that, I'm cool not being here.
I would really rather not go.
bye, suckers.
Y'all have fun dying.
Exactly.
Exactly.
You called me.
Wait, they're on Facebook proud they made the police turn around?
Yeah, like shooting at the police.
By arriving discreetly, you draw less attention to the scene and minimize the chance of drawing a crowd, alright? If it's a crime scene, turn your lights and sirens off. You don't want everybody and their brother to come outside and shoot at you. Alright, if the scene is chaotic, is it chaotic? You think a crime scene is gonna be chaotic? It is. Don't allow yourself to be pulled into the chaos. Okay? Your options include retreating until appropriate backup arrives or taking the patient and leaving if your scene becomes hostile. Be alert to the possibility that the scene could become dangerous. Be prepared to retreat if it does. Alright? Walk on the grass, not on the sidewalk for a quieter, less obvious approach. Use a flashlight. Hold it beside you, not in front of you. You hold it in front of you, you make yourself a target. If you're walking with a partner, walk single file. Don't walk two people, alright? The first person in line should carry the flashlight and hold it beside you. As you approach the scene, note possible places of concealment and cover. Alright, do you go straight up and knock on the door and stand in front of the door? No, you stand to the side. Alright, take a moment to look at windows and corners. You need to take longer look, change positions. Stand to the side of a door when you knock on it to avoid being a target for someone shooting. As soon as the door is open, assess the situation before you decide whether to retreat and call for reinforcement or to have your partner move the ambulance up to the front of the building. As you enter, leave the doors open behind you to ensure an escape route. Likewise, never appear to block the patient's route of escape. Alright? Do not ever let anybody come between you and that door. Does everybody understand that? Why is it not focused? Alright, your partner remains protecting yourself. Your priority is protecting yourself and your partner. Alright? Be aware that a perpetrator may still be on scene. Ensure that police have been called and follow local protocols. Limit the number of responders at a possible crime scene. Don't allow bystanders to touch or disturb the patient or their immediate surroundings. Introduce yourself to the patient and say that you're here to help. Crime victims are often confused and fearful of contact with strangers. Be alert to the possibility that the patient at the crime scene may not be a victim, but also a perpetrator. Alright? Remember, as you work on the patient, that your task is to render medical assistance and to save their life, not to aid in solving crime. Where appropriate, assist police in collecting and reporting anything on the patient, such as blood, hair, seminal fluid, gunpowder residue, or clothing fibers. Follow your local protocol. Take extreme care not to disturb any evidence that is not directly on the patient. Never touch or move suspected weapons unless it is necessary, treating the patient's injuries. Many guns found are loaded and extremely dangerous to handle because of the possibility of accidental discharge. If you touch a weapon, do not disturb any fingerprints that may be left on it. Pick a gun up by the edges of the grip and use gauze pads to pick up a knife at the very edge of the blade. Wear gloves the entire time. If you need to tear or cut away clothing to expose a wound, make sure you don't cut through bullet holes or knife slashes. If the patient was strangled or tied with a rope or other material, cut at a point away from the knot instead of untying it. If a patient is obviously dead when you arrive, do nothing and disturb nothing. Summon the police if they haven't already been called and wait for their arrival. And also note who is at the scene when you arrive. Alright? Hold the flashlight out to the side. Walk in a single file line. The person in the back gets to carry the jump kit. Always stand to the side to knock on the door. Scenes in which the patient or bystanders are prone to sudden changes in behavior put the emergency personnel at risk for violence and personal injury. The problems are compounded in a bar room where patrons often know each other and their actions may be affected by long-standing friendships or feud about which you have no knowledge. It is critical that you don't antagonize patrons. By routine questioning or comment can easily be misunderstood by an inebriated patient or bystander and lead to a violent confrontation. Have your partner stand and survey the patrons at all times. Don't turn your back on people in the bar. Don't reply to verbal threats, but never ignore them either. It takes only an instant for verbal abuse to turn into physical assault. If the situation becomes threatening, retreat and call the police. Alright, Chantal and Dale put on sunglasses to shield their eyes from the late afternoon sun as they start towards the scene. Dale turns off emergency lights and sirens 2 blocks from the scene, then parks at the curb 2 doors from the address. He observes that 3 police cars are on the scene. Keying the microphone on the mobile radio, he says, "Dispatch ambulance 5, can you advise if law enforcement has secured the scene?" Once they have been advised that law enforcement has secured the scene, Chantal and Dale exit the ambulance and bring their equipment onto the scene. The crowd is calm, and one of the police officers is kneeling down next to a man lying on the floor. What are the next observations that Dale and Chantal can make?
The condition of the patient.
Is the bar empty? Is it crowded? Is there a big crowd around this guy? Alright, what decision should the crew be prepared to make at this point? To get him out of there if it's a hostile situation? Alright, your uniform or the lights on an ambulance may be misinterpreted as the police by vehicle occupants who may be intoxicated or on alcohol and or drugs. Park your ambulance at least 1 car length behind a vehicle. Park with your wheels turned slightly to the left so that you can back up if you have to. You won't go any deeper into the shoulder of the road. Align your headlights in the middle of the trunk of the vehicle and turn them to high. Try to reflect your beams off the rearview mirror, eliminating the car's interior and making your approach more difficult for the occupants to see. Write down the license plate and leave it in the ambulance in case something happens. Note how many people are in the vehicle, their position, and the driver's apparent condition. Be wary around tinted windows. If you approach the vehicle, be alert to the possibility of other unseen occupants. Check to see whether the trunk is locked and look on the rear seat and the floor as you pass by. Have your partner open the passenger door a split second before you open the driver's door. If you are alone, wait for help to arrive. Keep behind the center post. Carry an object such as a report book or bag that you can throw at the occupant's face if they become violent. If you must retreat, immediately get into your vehicle and back up rapidly. Move 100 to 150 yards. Clear the killing zone. Alright, emergencies can also expose a patient to the curiosity of the public. A situation that some may find highly stressful. You must have a keen awareness of how such factors affect the patient and be prepared to do what's necessary to change them to ensure that the patient's safety and comfort. If you are unable to control the scene to make it safer for the patient, move the patient quickly to a safer environment such as the back of an ambulance. And when you do this, they will come to the back of an ambulance and they will knock on the doors. Or they will just open the doors up. Nothing infuriates me more. Protect bystanders. Your attention as an EMT must be directed towards the patient. However, the crowd is part of the scene, and making sure the bystanders are safe is one of your responsibilities during the scene size-up. If hazards to the bystanders cannot be minimized or eliminated, remove the bystanders from the scene. Yeah, good luck with that, homie. Alright, for their own safety, bystanders must be kept back in cases of possible spills, leaks, fires, or other emergency scene hazards. Control the scene. Provide light. Make it a point to have a good flashlight and keep it handy day and night. Remove furniture that interferes with access to the patient. It should be done after advising the patient or the bystanders of your intentions. In a residence, you must remember that despite the emergency, you are a guest in the home and should demonstrate a proper level of respect towards the owners or occupants, which is why I didn't ram the stretcher through that woman's hallway. You may need to move the patient to an area more conducive to patient care. Attempting to resuscitate a patient in a cramped bathroom would generally make little sense when, by moving the patient 5 feet to the bedroom, you would have plenty of space in which to work. Whenever an injury is suspected, the patient must be properly immobilized by a backboard before any movement is attempted. If operating outdoors, try to position the ambulance in such a way that the crowds won't get between you, the patient, and the ambulance. Good luck with that. When working indoors, consider asking bystanders to keep all doors along the route to the ambulance open. Good luck with that. Don't allow yourself to be cornered, alright? If the mood of a crowd turns ugly, you, your partner, and your patient may be in danger. Remember that a concerned crowd poses far less threat than an unruly crowd. Stay in control and anticipate that things will happen before they occur. Initiate action rather than respond to the actions of others. Stay calm. Other team members, the patient, and bystanders will respond more positively if you stay calm. Use tact and diplomacy. This is the hardest thing for me. A compassionate and understanding tone may produce more positive results than a harsh, demanding one. Yeah. I don't think these people have ever been in emails. Ever. Have a plan to deal with the situation you are facing, but remain ready to shift plans to plan B, C, or D if conditions indicate. Pre-hospital care involves working with people at a variety of ages, races, religion, or backgrounds. Many people have ways of life quite different to yours. Some of them are ways that you wouldn't choose to follow. Not only do you need to be alert to yourself, but also need to be alert to your partner, your patient, and your surroundings. Be compassionate towards the people you've been called on to serve. Alright, scene size up is a dynamic process. You must continuously assess the scene for unusual characteristics such as sounds, smells, and things that look odd or weird. Alright, when you've been doing this a while, you have what, 5 senses? You will get a 6th sense. Okay? You will just know something don't feel right, something don't look right, something ain't right here. You may not be able to figure out what it is right then, but you will know that something is not right. After scene safety has been ensured, the next step is the scene size up. Alright, what the problem is. Alright, what brought you to the scene. 2 basic categories are trauma and medical. An index of suspicion is the degree of your anticipation that the patient has been injured or has been injured in a specific way, based on your knowledge that certain mechanisms usually produce certain types of injuries. The mechanism of injury provides only a degree of suspicion of the type of injury. It doesn't, however, provide any indication of the actual injury itself. Identification of the mechanism of injury in a trauma patient may begin with the dispatch information. Dispatch of an automobile accident, a shooting, a fall, or a stabbing will provide some preliminary information as to the mechanism of injury. Once you arrive on the scene, it is necessary to take a much closer look at such scene characteristics as damage to automobiles, the use of restraint devices, the distance the patient fell, the types of surfaces they fell on, the position in which they landed, the object that struck the ground first, or the caliber of gun the patient was shot with. Such characteristics provide clues about what forces were applied to the body and what possible injuries can result. Looking for evidence of a fall when arriving on scene. Fallen ladders, collapsed scaffolding. Ropes and trees are on buildings. Trees in the immediate proximity of the patient. Stairs, balconies, roofs, or windows are all common places for falls to happen. Blunt forces applied to the body produce a widespread injury to organs, bones, muscles, nerves, blood vessels. The type of collision or point of impact to the vehicle commonly dictates the type of injuries to expect. Study the vehicle carefully, if possible, to identify this information. When approaching the scene of a motor vehicle crash, look for evidence of both external impact to the vehicle from an outside force and internal impact of the body in the vehicle. One EMT should quickly walk around all sides of the vehicle to identify points of impact. A lot of times, if they're, oh, my back hurts, my neck hurts, my arm hurts, I'll take a picture of the vehicle and be like, look, doc, this is what I could literally kick the car harder than. Yeah, y'all get what I'm picking up. All right. Blah, 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 blah. Deployment of driver and front seat passenger airbags may produce an impact mark that resembles what would be made if the patient's head contacting the windshield. In this case, determine whether the safety belt restraint system was used and examine the head for evidence of trauma. All right, ejection from a vehicle usually produces significant blunt or penetrating trauma. Patients often die not from the ejection itself, but from the car rolling on top of them. The death or significant injury of one passenger should cause you to suspect significant injury to other passengers. Motor vehicle crashes produce some of the most lethal mechanisms of injury. Blunt force applied to the body produces widespread injury to organs, bones, muscles, nerves, and blood vessels. All right, some of the things we talk about: head-on impact, angular impact, were they ejected, or did they lay the bike down? We've already, we'll talk about that a little bit more in trauma. All right, snowmobiles, also known as snow machines and all-terrain vehicles, are commonly operated on uneven terrain, a factor that contributes to rollovers. You will see crushing-type injuries. They can travel at high speeds, producing severe impact upon collision with trees, rocks, or other vehicles. And you also want to be alert to clothesline injury. Somebody tell me what a clothesline injury is. Yeah. It can decapitate you. Penetrating trauma. Whenever you receive report of a shooting or stabbing at the scene of a call, it is necessary to expose and assess the patient's body to confirm or rule out a stabbing or gunshot wound. With an unresponsive patient, completely expose them and look for penetrating injuries. This is what we call trauma naked. They are naked from the head down. Take their socks off. Take their underwear off. Take it all off. Trauma naked. Be sure to log roll the patient to inspect the posterior body for open wounds, heavy coats, dark clothing. Be sure to log roll the patient to inspect the posterior body for open wounds. Heavy coats, dark clothing, poor lighting, dark environments, or dark hair hide blood very well. Whenever you receive reports of a shooting or stabbing at the scene of a call, it's necessary to expose and assess the patient's body to confirm or rule out whether what you were told is valid or not. Okay. Explosions are another source of trauma. Gasoline, fireworks, natural gas, propane, acetylene, grain dust. Criminal intent are common causes of explosions. Look for injuries caused by the pressure wave associated by the blast. In a patient who is not injured but is suffering from a medical condition, you will begin determining the nature of illness. NOI during the scene size up. After you arrive at the scene, you must determine the reason that you were called. You can simply ask, why did you call the ambulance today? What seems to be going on? To determine, you can look for presence of medications, drugs, alcohol, oxygen concentrators, the position and condition of the patient. What does your patient look like? Do they look sick? Do they look not sick? Okay. Also, the environment that they're in. The last major element of scene size up is determining the total number of patients. Sometimes this is simple as simple as in a case of a single responsive patient who is called for help because of chest pain. At other times, you may have several patients due to a car wreck. You may have 5 people in each car. Mine hauls, can fit 7 people in my vehicle. So you can have up to 7 people. And if we're doing it unlawfully, you can get way more than that. Anywho, keep those things in mind, okay? Multiple patients, you want to perform triage. Alright, case study. Hi, I'm Dale, this is Chantel. Dale said to one of the police officers what happened. Police officer responds that the man's lying on the floor, was witnessed to have a seizure and fall off his bar stool. Putting on exam gloves and kneeling next to the patient, Chantal begins a primary assessment. She quickly determines that the patient is unresponsive but is breathing adequately. Dale speaks to a friend of the patient who is able to tell him that the patient has a history of seizures. They assess the patient and begin emergency care, staying alert to what's going on around them, suspecting both medical and possible trauma from the fall. They take precautions to protect the patient's spine. They determine that the patient first struck his head on an adjacent bar stool, then fell about 3 feet, landing on his shoulder. They package the patient for transport, and Dale thanks the police officer for their assistance as they load the patient into the ambulance and begin their trip to the emergency department. Do anybody got any questions? Yes, no, maybe, and pass it.